So now it's going to talk about TiddlyWiki5, which is a new version of TiddlyWiki that's under development at the moment. It's not yet ready for people to use it in anger, but it's up there if you're interested in inspecting it, seeing what you think, and perhaps contributing to the development. What's really driven us in doing this new version of TiddlyWiki is the way that over the last 5 years the capabilities of the browsers that we use have wildly improved. Although not necessarily so much on the Internet Explorer side of the fence, but finally we're seeing features like content editable and CSS transforms landing in Firefox. So in other words, it's the opportunity that HTML5 offers us to target a slightly smarter web than we were able to target 5 years ago. Another factor is that a product like TiddlyWiki, it thrives because of this community around it. And because, particularly, TiddlyWiki supports plugins, and it's the universe of hundreds of plugins around TiddlyWiki that make it so incredibly useful. But both of those situations tend to slightly restrict your ability to innovate on the product itself. So for instance, with having 800 plugins out there that are very intimately linked to TiddlyWiki, there's a bunch of changes that we might love to make to the core code, but if we do, it kills all those plugins. So there's a trade-off in a successful open source product between innovation and stability. So what you get out of stability is the ability to use the project as a platform for other people to work on. But obviously we expect to see levels of innovation in webby stuff, and we expect to see improvements come through all the time. So the model that you often get with open source projects is where they'll stick with the current status quo for as long as possible, and then make a reasonably abrupt upgrade to some new set of capabilities that breaks backwards compatibility. So that's where we are here, where this is the son of TiddlyWiki, with more capabilities than the original product, but the price you pay for those increased capabilities is once you've migrated your stuff from old classic TiddlyWiki to TiddlyWiki5, it's going to be hard to go back. So it's kind of like the same story as a Windows upgrade or an Office upgrade, I guess. Anyway, so there's really 4 things that I'd like to show you and talk about that I think are distinctive and new about TiddlyWiki. Slightly embarrassing showing you the actual screen, because this is intentionally very much an engineering prototype. It's got the functionality you've seen before, where I can click on a link and a tiddler opens. Here there's a little drop down that shows me some additional information about the tiddler. I can close it. There you can see the other stuff underneath. So there's the basic TiddlyWiki functionality is there, an individual tiddler marked out. Here we go, clicking on links and such like. The first thing that's a radical change with TiddlyWiki is the use of HTML for editing. So now if I click the edit button on this tiddler, you can see I've got an entirely conventional Microsoft Word style toolbar. So I can select some text and I can say make it bold, which obviously is what kind of we've come to expect of web-based tools like email clients, but wikis often don't work like that. Some of the problems that we've solved includes ways of making TiddlyWiki's macros, which are the way that you embed dynamic content into TiddlyWiki, making them work within a WYSIWYG environment. So here I've selected a chunk of text that includes a macro. I can copy it and paste it down there, and the macro should copy too. And what we're trying to do here is to significantly lower the barrier to using TiddlyWiki by making it easier for end users to enter text using the tools that they're most familiar with, but critically without losing the ability to use wiki-style dynamic functionality like macros. The second aspect of adopting HTML is that now the content itself is stored in a way that's much easier for other components of the web to process. So for instance, Google now sees a TiddlyWiki5 document as a completely conventional HTML document. It can follow links and so on exactly as they expect it. So it sort of just slightly narrows the distance between the slightly freaky world of wikis, which work a bit differently than some applications that people are used to, and conventional mainstream web applications. The second thing we've done is to bring graphics. So when you look at old TiddlyWiki, one of the constraints was I wanted it to fit in a single HTML file, which gives it some powerful capabilities and makes it easier to distribute. But it means that we were constrained in designing the user interface to not use any graphics. And so you see, for instance, these toolbar buttons are words and not the images that one would expect. So that was a technical constraint with the old version. Now we're using SVG graphics, which is the style of vector graphics supported by HTML5, and we're using a mapping layer so that you can use the same graphics in Internet Explorer. So what this lets us do is finally elevate graphics to being a first-class citizen of a wiki. So all the operations that people are used to doing in wikis that give them great power, like for instance transclusion, we're bringing operations like transclusion to graphics. So it means to end users some simple stuff. You can assign icons to tiddlers, you can assign an icon to a tag. So if you want to tag something, you might have a little row of icons that are sort of on or off, and you'd click those in order to modify the tags on the underlying thing. You will also, in due course, be able to literally right-click on any image that you see anywhere in TiddlyWiki and edit it, and there'll be an integrated editor along the lines of SVG edit. So to me that's tremendously powerful. It means that we can craft user interfaces that incorporate graphics, which means a much richer style of user interface than we've been able to do before. More to the point, though, I think it allows us to support people whose information handling needs include graphics as a type of information, not just a decoration, if you see what I mean. The third thing that we've done is, in the background over the last 5 years, the last 2 years, we've been developing TiddlyWeb. TiddlyWeb is designed to be a server-side for TiddlyWiki. So it's a way of taking the essentially single-user TiddlyWiki experience, putting it up on a server, and dealing with multiple people who want to edit it at once. And TiddlyWeb finally brings to TiddlyWiki the conventional wiki features, like for instance a revision history. But it's certainly true that although as TiddlyWeb has been developed and we've increased the capabilities of TiddlyWeb, TiddlyWiki itself hasn't been able to always be updated to take advantage of those capabilities. And that's kind of because of the problem I mentioned before, that as time a popular open source project is constrained to maintain backwards compatibility. So one of the things that we've done in TiddlyWiki5 is to properly support all the features of TiddlyWeb. So that means multiple revisions, what we call lazy loading, which is the ability to defer loading content from the server until it's actually needed, which can improve performance, and some internal stuff. And the fourth category of changes I'd like to mention is really the technical stuff.
Should we go through that? Let's do another video with just some of the technical stuff.